Hi there. This is Her Intentional Reset, a podcast for women in midlife curious about whether the career they chose 20 years ago still fits. Hear from women who've made pivots big and small, discuss the practical realities, the trade-offs, and whether the change was worth it. I'm your host, Molly Wibberfirth. If you're new here, welcome. I'm glad you found us. And find us in between episodes on Instagram and Facebook at herintentionalreset.co. That's .co for behind the scenes and what's coming next. Today's episode is a little different, and it's one I've been excited to record for a while. It's about a book that kept showing up in my life right when I needed it. And it's about my guest, Calleen, who's also used this exact book to make her own career pivot and hasn't put it down since. And it's about something brand new we're building together. Our first Her Intentional Reset experience. So stay with me until the end because I'm going to tell you how to be a part of it and how you can win one of 8 copies of this book that we're going to be reading together. So first, let me tell you how this book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, found me, because I think that matters as much as the book itself. And listeners, you have actually already heard about this book in 2 other episodes as well, if you've been following along to this entire podcast series. I talked about it in my reflections in last week's episodes, but the first time I heard it was in episode 8 from Courtney. She previously was a Spotify executive who now is a solo founder of a wonderful consulting business. When I asked Courtney for her one non-negotiable for her well-being, she didn't say sleep or exercise. She said it was the ritual of the morning pages from The Artist's Way. And it was the practice that helped her decide to start her own podcast. I made a mental note of it during our conversation, and then I moved on. A few days before the actual episode aired, it was a Sunday, and I was editing Courtney's episode, and I heard the mention of The Artist's Way while I was finalizing the episode. That day, I had to run to Patina, a beautiful gift store in Minnesota, and I ran in to get a card. And on the shelves, there it is, the first time that I've ever seen this book, The Artist's Way, sitting on the shelf, looking at me. Then the next morning, Monday, I teach yoga twice a week. And one of my students, Calleen, who only recently started taking my class, and I say student with an asterisk because Calleen has been practicing yoga for 30 years and used to teach yoga herself. Calleen asks me what I'm up to that day. And here's the thing, it would have been really easy to say, just work. That's the safe answer because I've only talked to Calleen a handful of times, but I didn't. For whatever reason, I briefly told her that, well, funny story. I got laid off in January and I decided to start a podcast to talk to other women who have been making career pivots, et cetera, et cetera. And Calleen lights up and she tells me that she made a career pivot in her 40s as well. And that this book, The Artist's Way, was pivotal in helping her do it. So in a span of 3 days, a book that I had never heard about kept showing up. I definitely believe that the universe gives us signs and we just need to be looking and open to receiving those signs. And with that, you know me, a little bit of woo, a lot of practicality. So while I believe in these signs from the universe, I also believe that there is some science behind this of why The Artist's Way kept showing up in my life when it did. And it reminded me of this Mel Robbins podcast episode that I had to go back and hunt for. But essentially, Mel is talking about using the example of, say, you're looking for a green truck or you're researching a green truck. And then all of a sudden, as you're doing the research, you start noticing green trucks all around you. That's what this felt like. And that's the episode that this reminded me of and that I went to research. Like, what is the actual neuroscience behind that? And there actually is a filter in your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS for short. And its whole job is to decide what gets into your conscious awareness and what gets filtered out, because you're taking in far more information than you could ever process. And the moment something lands on your radar, your RAS starts surfacing it everywhere. Mel used that example of the green truck. The second you think of buying a green truck, suddenly you see green trucks on every corner. They were always there. You just weren't paying attention to them. So me spotting this book at Patina, probably not magic. It had likely been on the shelf for months. Courtney planted the seed in my brain, and my brain flagged it as important. And so then I suddenly saw it. But here's the part that the science doesn't fully explain. And this is where I do believe it's the universe aligning things the way that it's supposed to when the timing is right. The part that I keep coming back to is my conversation with Calleen that happened after a yoga practice. In that moment, instead of choosing to say work, I chose, for whatever reason, just to say the true thing, the honest thing to Calleen. The universe didn't hand me that moment. I put myself in the room for it. So was it a sign? Was it my reticular activating system? Or was it me finally paying attention to something I'd been circling for months? Honestly, I think it was all of it. And the takeaway is the same either way. This book kept showing up in my life, and my paths crossed with Calleen at the right time. Before I bring Calleen in, for those who haven't heard of this book, a quick grounding. The Artist's Way was written by Julia Cameron and published in 1992. It has more than 5 million copies sold. Julia is an author, playwright, and filmmaker, and her central thesis in this book is that creativity is not a talent, it's a practice. And most of us have had it blocked, whether it be by a specific person, a demanding job, or a life that just kept moving. Big note, when we speak about unblocking creativity, we do not mean that this is just for artists in the traditional sense. Julia built a 12-week course to help everyday people, you and I, to recover it. And the whole book centers around 2 tools. And I'm going to let Calleen tell you what those actually do to a person, because her version is better than any summary that I could give you. One more thing before we start. Julia envisioned that this book would be used as a free resource and would be done in a community, in small groups that she calls creative clusters. People who work through the 12 weeks together, check in, and hold each other accountable. So this creative cluster is what her intentional reset experience is going to incorporate. But I'll tell you more about that after Calleen's story. Now, meet Calleen De Oliveira. Due to Calleen's discovery of the Artist's Way and the regular utilization of the morning pages, this helped Calleen navigate a life that she's proud of. Calleen adopted her niece and fosters her nephews. She also found sobriety for 28 years and has been happily married for 37. In addition, Calleen went to nursing school at 40 and practiced for 20 years as an RN. Lastly, Calleen has been a devoted practitioner of yoga for 3 decades, which has also been a key part of her practice with the Artist's Way. Before becoming an RN, Calleen worked for 25 years in the advertising industry as a broadcast buyer and seller for TV and radio stations. I'm so excited to have Calleen on the show. This is her intentional reset. Hi, Calleen. It's so great to have you on.
Thanks, Molly. I'm nervous and excited to be here. The Artist's Way is so life-changing that I wish every single woman could do it, because it gives you a path that you end up being proud of in your life.
So that's why it was so important for me that when our paths crossed and you had shared your story about how you used the book, I knew I needed to have you on to share your story with others about the impact that this book has had for you.
Yeah.
So let's just start at the beginning. I realized that you were in advertising at the time that you were doing The Artist's Way. So help us understand what life looked like. Were you in a situation at the time where you were looking for a transition? Where were you at?
Yes, I was looking for a transition. I was at KQ and KMSP, and it was nice, but you're only as good as your last sale. All of a sudden, you turn 40. I believe I was going through perimenopause too, and I was just angry. I was resentful. I was angry, and I was not floundering because, yeah, my marriage, when you said happy marriage, I'm like, thank goodness for morning pages. So I knew when I turned 40, I could no longer be in a career that took from the world, that I needed to be in something that contributed to the world and made a difference. And actually, doing some of the exercises in The Artist's Way, you start to remember some of the things you liked in your childhood. And all of a sudden, so I don't want to get ahead of myself.
How did you come to find The Artist's Way then?
With a friend of mine, I was in something called the Forum. And the big takeaway from there is you don't know what you don't know. Katie asked me, let's go to this lecture. And there is this woman talking about this course. And I was just looking for a change.
What was it about The Artist's Way that you decided, okay, this book, I'm going to give it a try?
Well, first of all, I knew I couldn't do anything on my own. As disciplined as I am. And the women that I met there, I wanted to hang around them. And there was just something internal inside of me that knew I had to make a change. And again, not sure. I went through menopause so early. I'm 66 now. So this was 26 years ago. We're talking about it now, but 26 years ago we weren't. And I didn't know. But I knew I had to make a change. And these women seemed to be the safest way to do it. And that's why I went with it.
Yes. Let's explain to the audience the two main components of The Artist's Way. The first is morning pages, which is an exercise that you're supposed to do every morning where you are stream of consciousness writing or journaling. And then the second main aspect is the artist's date, where you take yourself on a solo expedition to tap into your creativity. Tell us the impact of the morning pages helping you figure out your next path.
Yeah. So now this was before coffee was a thing, right? And of course, I was such an overachiever, following the rules. I followed the rules in Julia's book. And I made sure my pen and my journal were right on the floor. So the first thing I did in the morning was I grabbed my pen and my notebook because I knew if I got out of bed, it was game over. Really.
Yeah.
I can find 100 things to do around the house.
Yeah.
But I was that uptight about following the rules. However, I knew I also had to set it up that way if I wanted to get this stuff out that I needed to. And that's what I did the whole 12 weeks because I didn't trust myself. And then somehow I realized I could get out of bed, brush my teeth, and grab a cup of coffee and sit down and write. And then the artist dates, well, actually, it's kind of fun to go out and play. It's challenging at first because I grew up in such a you work, you get the result. You work, you get the result. No, you don't play. So this was something that was not easy for me to grow into, but I make up artist dates for myself all the time now.
Yes. Through the morning pages, you previously shared that helped you decide to go to nursing school. How did you know that was the right path for you? Because it's completely different from advertising sales.
Yeah, but customer service is everywhere. Let me just say that.
Mhm.
One of the exercises in the artist's way is going back to childhood things. When I was a senior, I wanted to go to nursing school, but due to my family circumstances, that was not at the time. I could not have a car to go to Wilmer and apply. Oh, so writing your morning pages, it gives you a sense of courage, one step at a time. Calleen, just call Normandale, see what it takes to get into an anatomy class, which would piggyback with yoga. And I was teaching 9 yoga classes a week at that time. And then after that, then I had to use my morning pages a lot to release my anxiety about failure in classes and failure in nursing school. It's the anxiety that I had through nursing school. If I wouldn't have had the morning pages to have somewhere to dump it, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's where these morning pages, they're called morning pages because you're supposed to do them in the morning. But I signed up for a 12-week video course on the artist's way, and I'll share that with everyone that participates in this creative cluster that we're forming. The author, Julia Cameron, says it should be called the morning pages, Mourning.
Amen. Oh my God.
Yes, because of what comes out of that in that stream of consciousness writing.
That gives me goosebumps. It's your fears. So if I can segue a little bit, it was like sobriety. I got so sick of writing about my hangovers, even though trust me, still, I said 28 years later, not enough to ever go back, but red wine hangover or an yoga inversion. I couldn't do inversions. And so it came out in the morning of the loss. Because let me tell you, you lose a lot of friends when you get sober. And you didn't realize that it was alcohol that was your form of entertainment. And morning pages. Oh my God, that is so true. I'm going to have to write about that tomorrow morning.
Yes. And that's where
that makes me want to cry, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you might appreciate that insight. And I'm glad that it resonated with you the way it resonated with me. And I hope it's okay that I asked, since you shared that you've been sober for 28 years. Was that your intention
with this book?
No.
No. Okay.
Oh God, no.
That was just another thing that
came out of it.
Wow.
It's like all of a sudden you look at yourself and you're whining. Oh my God, I got so sick of myself. Now, a lot of beautiful things come out of morning pages. I wrote a beautiful story about my mom, the lines on my mom's face, how beautiful they were. I wrote a lot of fun little poems about my daughter. It's very playful, but the gist of that for me at the beginning, now it's mostly a gratitude journal, is, oh my God, do you really talk to yourself like that? What I also learned, and one of the things I say often is, Calleen, what would you say to your girlfriend if she came to you and talked to you about this? The grace that you give her, can you write about that grace in your morning pages? Yeah, it's a place to be with yourself that you're conscious, not drinking.
Yeah. Oh,
so yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Calleen. I know that you were in a creative cluster with some other friends. When you started the 12-week journey, did you have that group already established?
No, we met at Julia's lecture. Kate, who I was with, she was a photographer. So she had these beautiful cards. She handed them out to everybody in the front row. And for the first maybe 4 to 6 weeks, we all showed up. But by the end of the 12, there was a good group of 8 of us. And I'll tell you, the 8 of us were together for 10 years, a decade. And we took turns hosting. We took turns choosing restaurants. We took turns creating the artist dates. One was, back in the day, we had cameras. We all got on a bus and we took black and white photographs riding the bus of Minneapolis. Now, it doesn't cost you a dime.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of artist dates that we made
Yes.
and created. This cluster of women was really strong, really, really, really strong. And again, I never had a medium. I started out cooking, and then I went to writing, and then I picked yoga. I wanted to live this kind of life, a
Yes.
creative life, a creative life.
Yes. And thank you for touching on that, because the title of the book is called The Artist's Way, and it's searching for creativity. But I want to make sure that the listener knows that this does not mean by the end of this that you're going to all of a sudden quit your day job and become a painter, unless that's something that's your calling. But finding your creativity through the artist's way can still help any of us possibly wondering what that next thing is. What I love about your story is that this helped you overcome the fear and helped you realize that you wanted to go back to nursing school. Let's talk a little bit more about the artist dates. Once a week, taking yourself out on that solo date. How would you interpret the artist date? What were the things that you did?
Well, I didn't feel there was as much available as there is now. I took myself fishing. When's the last time you went fishing? I took myself swimming. I took myself out to the picnic table with my cereal, my milk, and I sat down, watched the sun come up. So those are like no cost. There's tarot readings. There's lots of bike rides. I went to the library often.
I want people to feel comfortable that this artist solo date doesn't have to have the word art in it. You don't have to go to a museum,
I mean, you can, but you get to decide what your artist dates are, but it's just doing something to stimulate a different part of my brain that I don't use. Very less linear.
And in one of the videos that Julia is talking about is these solo dates are an opportunity to play. So often we think in terms of tapping into our creativity that we have to work for our creativity, where it should be flipping that mindset of when is the last time that we played?
Yeah.
And I don't know when I've done that. So it's forcing yourself to get a little uncomfortable, probably with that idea, and probably asking yourself, what could I do that would be playful for me?
Yeah. God, the to-do list is never ending.
Yeah.
That's why it's so challenging with the society, and it's the environment. The emotional baggage that women are expected to take is uncalled for. And we have to stop it. We're just responsible for the effort, not the outcome. So let's make the effort of our play. And what a way to challenge yourself, because then you realize that little challenge leads to so many different areas of your life that you're thinking, oh, this isn't a challenge anymore, because you learn that muscle. Okay. Yeah.
And that leads me to my next question of, you still have now essentially incorporated this into your day-to-day, right?
So I mentioned before, when I first started, I had to be by my bed because I had to be able to go and do it because I had to follow the rules. I don't think I missed a day of morning pages for 3 years. I would even be going to Europe and I would wake myself up into my morning pages. Now I choose, nope, I'm leaving my journal home for the month, or I'm leaving it home for the week. But it took me that long to start granting that kind of grace to myself because I was so rigid in having to follow the rules. However, I have to say, I think the longest I ever went without doing morning pages was 3 months.
Yes. For people that want to join this creative cluster that we're forming, let's talk about some best practices to set ourselves up for success for this 12-week journey. What is the right mindset to be going into this?
Okay, bottom line, if you really don't want to change your life, don't do it. If you want to change your life, this book changes your life. My God, I'm a registered nurse. Come on.
You did that at 40.
40 to 46. It took me 6 years to do a 2-year program, but nobody cares because I passed my boards. Again, it's another practice of grace, but the artist way will change your life. If you're going to go in and miss every other week, don't bother, really. Yeah. I just want you to be treated the way you want others to be treated. And you will. This will change you. Who thought I'd get sober? Jesus. I mean, I wasn't looking to get sober. My life was just fine. And I'm not saying that's not going to happen to you.
Right. So don't be like, oh, wait, now I've got to do this. Yeah.
I'm not saying you're going to adopt a kid. Just saying. I mean, I did some big stuff during these morning pages. Yeah. So it changes your life if you want to.
Yes. And if you don't want to stop drinking, you don't have to. You can still do the morning pages for other reasons.
Again, this was my stuff, but it changes your life. And it's so joyful. You just get so much joy in the morning. Once you get rid of that, whatever's worrying you about the day, whatever your to-do list, whatever my spouse made me mad the night before, or what I'm afraid about, what I have to talk to about my boss today. Once it's out on the page, it's like your shoulders are back, your posture straight. It will change you just for the better.
Yeah. Yes. As long as you show up
and do the work.
Do the work.
And it's not scary. None of it's scary. I also would say, Molly, have everyone read the introduction. So when you get there, they have everything set up so they know what to do. So you can start with the first chapter.
Okay. Excellent. So we will make sure that people get familiar with the introduction in the book. We don't want people to read ahead.
No, it's part of the fun.
Yes. And it's 12 chapters, and each chapter is 1 week in the 12-week journey. So let's talk about a little bit more of that time commitment, though. The morning pages, Julia recommends the 3 pages. How do busy moms make this work in their morning? What's your perspective on that?
If you read the introduction, the thing is you have to get rid of the nattering to hear what you want to say below. And so it's going to take you about 20 minutes. Okay. And I know my first, I am so sick of this. I am so sick of this. I am so sick of this. I mean, the first week you will be, yeah. And then it gets to the even more vomit. Just follow the rules. And yes, discipline has a value. There's nothing wrong with discipline and listening and following the rules. It's only 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's it. It's not like we're asking you to do this the rest of your life. It's just 12 weeks. Just follow the rules.
Yeah, just do it. And I loved your example that you knew early on that you could not leave your bed to do it. And so, no, for real, I love that you were that descriptive with us. And I will be implementing that because I'm just like you. I know that if I get up and make my coffee, then I feed the dog, then I feed the cat. Then right now we're fostering bunnies. So then I check on the bunnies, and then I notice the dirt on the ground, and then I sweep, and et cetera.
I have friends who put their coffee pot in their bedroom because they knew, again, just saying.
Yes.
You have to build that muscle.
Okay.
You just have to. And you have to do that size of journal, your 9x13, in order to get down to that soft, quiet voice that is your heart and your true North Star.
The artist date, I think you've done a great job of helping us understand that it can be anything that is intriguing to us for our sense of play. My only other thought as I'm thinking through of how I'm going to be executing this is I have to put it in my calendar. Summer sometimes feels more busy than the school year. Any other suggestions?
Maybe if there's other people that you meet, you could always, you watch your kids while I watch yours while you know it.
I love that suggestion. If there are 1 or 2 days that we fall off the bandwagon, any suggestions for those situations? Just get back on it?
Yeah, write about it. Write about it in your morning pages. Okay. How are you talking to yourself? Look at this. All you did was didn't write for 2 days. I hope everyone just embraces it and has the breakthrough, the intention that whatever they're looking for. Yeah. I was so lost. but I knew I had to change my life.
Yes. On that note, Calleen, for listeners hearing about the Artist's Way for the first time, who would you say should participate in this book?
If you want to live a creative life, a more conscious life, and I don't know how many more years you have to work. For me, it was about what I was going to do next.
Yeah.
This will be one of the stepping stones. Again, it's the journey. People want the destination, but it's the journey. And these morning pages get you to that journey where it becomes clear and it opens up for you what your next journey is. So, for example, I'm going to create my third act now. And I know that the morning pages will guide me.
Yeah. I just got chills all over again. So it's leaving it open to essentially anyone that is looking for something or looking for the next thing or looking to unlock their own creativity. That's who this book is for. Thank you so much, Calleen. And I hope you're able to join us in these creative clusters.
If people could realize how powerful this is. Again, I have done all of her books because I cannot figure out the world on my own. But each one of Julia's books have given me a guideline to somehow live in the world with some sense of potential, some sense of caring, sense of contributing. I'm just so grateful for all of her work.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing your experience with this book. I felt like it was so serendipitous of our paths to cross, and I'm glad that I did.
Me too. So thank you.
Yes, thanks, Calleen. If you've been sitting with a question, a feeling, or just curious, wouldn't it be great to have some clarity, like Calleen? Wouldn't it be great to explore and take action? I'm launching the very first Her Intentional Reset experience, the Artist's Way Creative Cluster. This is what I've been building toward, a real community beyond the podcast where we don't just listen to other women's pivots, we actually do the work alongside each other. Here's how it's going to work. We're going to work our way through the Artist's Way together with Julia Cameron's 12-week virtual guide, an online course that we'll use to learn from and talk through insights and takeaways and ask questions. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't even have to read the book in advance. We'll work through the chapters together. You just have to be curious enough to start. Logistics. We will kick this off on June 15th and brings us through the end of August. Now, I realize that summers can feel even busier than the rest of the year, especially for those with kids. But here's the thing. How long have we been sitting with these questions that we want to work through? There's never a great time, but we're going to make the time. Our first virtual meeting will be Wednesday, June 17th, and then we'll meet virtually every other week. Come when you can. No pressure, no perfect attendance, no guilt. Because I want as many of you in this as possible, I'm giving away 8 copies of The Artist's Way, open to all U.S. listeners. All those details are available on Instagram and Facebook at herintentionalreset.co. It'll also be provided in these show notes. In closing, listeners, if this episode got you thinking, here's my invitation. Share this with one person who needs to hear it, and that's how we grow this community together. And remember to explore on your own terms, because nothing changes if nothing changes.